not what you, whatever reality is, it's not what you see. Whatever reality is not what you see. What you see is just an adaptive fiction.
No. So this guy, Donald Hoffman, another fucking liar who doesn't know shit. We'll see. We're gonna listen to him. He's on the Lex Friedman podcast.
Over 120 scientific papers on whatever reality is, it's not what you see. Well, what you see is just an adaptive fiction.
See, it's opposite of that. We can see reality for ourselves, but we choose the illusion. We choose. It's our choice. The 7.8 billion zombies. I'm watching my channel. I'm going back and looking at the videos. I'm showing it very clearly to everyone. For 5 years now, I've been showing it to you. And nobody will come forward. Nobody will wake up to reality. They choose all these religions, politics, science, which is just another religion. And to hear them going on and on and on, everybody that I talk to, everybody that I see in my regular daily life thinks along these same fucking lines. It's so aggravating. You show them the fucking truth, they walk away from it. They do not want to be involved in reality. They want to live by false illusions. It's unbelievable.
Whatever reality is, it's not what you see. Well, what you see is just an adaptive fiction.
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and do this. This is going to be another fucking aggravating series to me, but I guess all of them are going to be. I mean, at some point, right? He's got 2, maybe 3 people on there who dabble around in some of these realities, but there are so many lies revolving around everything that they say that you can't count on it. You have to go look for yourselves. We can see the entire system for ourselves. We can see it in the trees, the ice, the water, the clouds, the moon. We can see it in human skin. We can see it in the stones, the rocks. We can separate everything. We can easily go and look at it all for ourselves. But no one will go look. So fucking
Whatever
aggravating.
reality is, it's not what you see. Well, what you see is just an adaptive fiction. The following is a conversation with Donald Hoffman, professor of cognitive sciences at UC Irvine, focusing his research on evolutionary psychology, visual perception, and consciousness. He's the author of over 120 scientific papers on these topics, and his most recent book titled The Case Against Reality: Why Evolution Hid the Truth from Our Eyes. I think some of the most interesting ideas in this world, like those of Donald Hoffman's.
So just a little reminder for anybody who has not watched my past videos. Evolution is a human construct. The only feline, canine, rodent, ape, human, and beast, what we can see that the true creator created. The true creator's creation, the false creator's creation, the false creator / creator's creation. That has to do with feline, canine, rodent, ape, human, and beast. Every other creature on this earth that came afterward was from humans dividing Adam. When humans divided Adam, that's where all the other creatures came from. So it didn't happen as evolution says, where we started off as fish or little organisms and then evolved into these other species. Fuck you, you liars. You're all fucking liars.
Attempt to shake the foundation of our understanding of reality, and thus they take a long time to internalize deeply. So proceed with caution. Questioning the fabric of reality can lead you to either madness or the truth. And the funny thing is, you won't know which is which. This is the Lex Friedman podcast. To support it, please check out our sponsors in the description. And now, dear friends, here's Donald Hoffman. In your book, The Case Against Reality: Why Evolution Hid the Truth from Our Eyes, you make the bold claim that the world we see with our eyes is not real. It's not even an abstraction of objective reality. It is completely detached from objective reality. Can you explain this idea?
Right, so this is a theorem from evolution by natural selection. So the technical question that I and my team asked was, what is the probability that natural selection would shape sensory systems to see true properties of objective reality? And to our surprise, we found that the answer is precisely zero, except for one kind of structure that we can go into if you want to. But for any generic structure that you might think the world might have, a total order, a topology, metric, the probability is precisely zero that natural selection would shape any sensory system of any organism to see any aspect of objective reality. So in that sense, what we're seeing is what we need to see to stay alive long enough to reproduce. So in other words, we're seeing what we need to guide adaptive behavior. Full stop.
So, the evolutionary process, the process that took us from the origin of life on Earth to the humans that we are today, that process does not maximize for truth, it maximizes for fitness, as you say. Fitness beats truth. And fitness does not have to be connected to truth, is the claim. And that's where you have an approach towards zero of probability, that we have evolved human cognition, human consciousness, whatever it is, the magic that makes our mind work, evolved not for its ability to see the truth of reality, but its ability to survive in the environment.
I don't think I can do it.
That's exactly
I
right.
don't think I can do
So
a series
most
to
of
this
us
guy.
intuitively think that surely
I gotta
the
find
way that
someone else to do a
evolution
series to.
will make our senses more fit is to make them tell us more truths, or at least the truths we need to know about objective reality, the truths we need in our niche. That's the standard view, and it was the view I took. I mean, that's sort of what we're taught, or just even assumed. It's just sort of like the intelligent assumption that we would all make.
Yeah, this is ridiculous. I'm gonna play this.
Wave our hands.
Yeah, I'm gonna play this fucking video, but that's it. I'm fucking done. I'm fucking done, man. I'm so fucking pissed about all this. Okay. I'm gonna have to find some liberal douchebag that I like or something, because these fucking conservative politicians, political scientists, they're all full of shit, man. They're so full of shit, it's unbelievable. And they think that they're right. They think they're more right than the other side of their bullshit stories. It's all fucking unbelievable, man. It's unfucking believable. But every word out of their fucking mouth is a lie. Every word. It's like listening to Joe Rogan. You know, they're purposeful fucking liars, man. They can't be this fucking confused. And it's all opposite of reality. We can see the reality for ourselves. I'm gonna have to walk away. I'm gonna put it on play while I'm making these videos, just to get through the videos, I guess. But I gotta find somebody else to do a series to, because no fucking way am I wasting another fucking 200-300 parts of another series to this guy Lex Friedman. Lex, if you ever fucking come to the Jordan Peterson, maybe I'll just do that. I'll just add these to the Jordan Peterson series. I mean, Jordan Peterson is just as fucking intelligent as Lex Friedman is. Fucking geniuses, man. Unbelievable.
Evolution of natural selection is a mathematically precise theory. John Maynard Smith in the 70s created evolutionary game theory, and we have evolutionary graph theory and even genetic algorithms that we can use to study this. And so we don't have to wave our hands. It's a matter of theorem and proof, and or simulation before you get the theorems and proofs. And a couple of graduate students of mine, Chester Mark and Brian Marion, did some wonderful simulations that tipped me off that there was something going on here. And then I went to a mathematician, Clayton Prakash and Manish Singh, and some other friends of mine, Chris Fields. But Clayton was the real mathematician behind all this, and he's proved several theorems that uniformly indicate that, with one exception, which has to do with probability measures, there's no, the probability is zero. The reason there's an exception for probability measures, so-called sigma algebras or sigma additive classes, is that for any scientific theory, there is the assumption that needs to be made that whatever structure, whatever probabilistic structure the world may have, is not unrelated to the probabilistic structure of our perceptions. If they were completely unrelated, then no science would be possible. So this is technically the map from reality to our senses has to be a so-called measurable map. It has to preserve sigma algebras. But that means it could be infinite to one, and it could collapse all sorts of event information. But other than that, there's no requirement in standard evolutionary theory for fitness payoff functions, for example, to preserve any specific structures of objective reality. So you can ask the technical question. This is one of the avenues we took. If you look at all the fitness payoffs from whatever world structure you might want to imagine, so a world with, say, a total order on it. So it's got n states, and they're totally ordered. And then you can have a set of maps from that world into a set of payoffs, say from 0 to 1,000, or whatever you want your payoffs to be. And you can just literally count all the payoff functions and just do the combinatorics and count them. And then you can ask a precise question: how many of those payoff functions preserve the total order, if that's what you're looking, or how many preserve the topology? And you just count them and divide. So the number that are homomorphisms versus the total number, and then take the limit as the number of states in the world, and the number of payoff values goes very large. And when you do that, you get 0 every time.
Okay, there's a million things to ask here, but first of all, just in case people are not familiar with your work, let's sort of linger on the big, bold statement here, which is the thing we see with our eyes is not some kind of limited window into reality. It is completely detached from reality. Likely completely detached from reality. You're saying 100% likely. Okay, so none of this is real in the way we think is real. In the way we have this intuition, there's like this table is some kind of abstraction, but underneath it all, there's atoms. And there's an entire century of physics that describes the functioning of those atoms and the quarks that make them up. There's many Nobel Prizes about particles and fields and all that kind of stuff that slowly builds up to something that's perceivable to us, both with our eyes, with our different senses, as this table. Then there's also ideas of chemistry that over layers of abstraction, from DNA to embryos to cells, that make the human body. So all of that is not real.
It's a real experience, and it's a real adaptive set of perceptions. So it's an adaptive set of perceptions, full stop. We want to think
The
that
perceptions are real.
So their perceptions are real as perceptions, right? They are. We are having our perceptions, but we've assumed that there's a pretty tight relationship between our perceptions and reality. If I look up and see the moon, then there is something that exists in space and time that matches what I perceive. And all I'm saying is that if you take evolution by natural selection seriously, then that is precluded. That our perceptions are there. They're there to guide adaptive behavior, full stop. They're not there to show you the truth. In fact, the way I think about it is they're there to hide the truth, because the truth is too complicated. It's just like if you're trying to, use your laptop to write an email, right? What you're doing is toggling voltages in the computer. But good luck trying to do it that way. The reason why we have a user interface is because we don't want to know that quote-unquote truth, the diodes and resistors and all that terrible hardware. If you had to know all that truth, it would, your friends wouldn't hear from you. So what evolution gave us was perceptions that guide adaptive behavior, and part of that process, it turns out, means hiding the truth and giving you eye candy.
So what's the difference between hiding the truth and forming abstractions, layers upon layers of abstractions over low-level voltages and transistors and chips and programming languages from assembly to Python that then leads you to be able to have an interface like Chrome, where you open up another set of JavaScript and HTML programming languages that lead you to have a graphical user interface on which you can then send your friends an email. Is that completely detached from the zeros and ones that are firing away inside the computer?
It's not. Of course, when I talk about the user interface on your desktop, there's this whole sophisticated backstory to it, right? That the hardware and the software that's allowing that to happen. Evolution doesn't tell us the backstory, right? So the theory of evolution is not going to be adequate to tell you what is that backstory. It's going to say that whatever reality is, and that's the interesting thing, it says whatever reality is, you don't see it. You see a user interface, but it doesn't tell you what that user interface is, how it's built. Right now, we can try to look at certain aspects of the interface, but already we're going to look at that and go, okay, before I would look at neurons and I was assuming that I was seeing something that was at least partially true. And now I'm realizing it could be like looking at the pixels on my desktop or icons on my desktop, and good luck, going from that to the data structures and then the voltages. And good luck. There's just no way. So what's interesting about this is that our scientific theories are precise enough and rigorous enough to tell us certain limits, and even limits of the theories themselves. But they're not going to tell us what the next move is, and that's where scientific creativity comes in. So the stuff that I'm saying here, for example, is not alien to physicists. The physicists are saying precisely the same thing, that space-time is doomed. We've assumed that space-time is fundamental. We've assumed that for several centuries, and it's been very useful. So all the things that you were mentioning, the particles and all the work that's been done, that's all been done in space-time. But now physicists are saying space-time is doomed. There's no such thing as space-time fundamentally in the laws of physics. And that comes actually out of gravity together with quantum field theory. It just comes right out of it. It's a theorem of those two theories put together. But it doesn't tell you what's behind it. So the physicists know that their best theories, Einstein's gravity and quantum field theory put together, entail that space-time cannot be fundamental, and therefore particles in space-time cannot be fundamental. They're just irreducible representations of the symmetries of space-time. That's what they are. So space-time, so we put the two together. We put together what the physicists are discovering, and we can talk about how they do that. And then the new discoveries from evolution by natural selection. Both of these discoveries are really in the last 20 years. And what both are saying is space-time has had a good ride. It's been very useful. Reductionism has been useful, but it's over. And it's time for us to go beyond.
When you say space-time is doomed, is it the space, is it the time, is it the very hard-coded specification of 4 dimensions? Or are you specifically referring to the kind of perceptual domain that humans operate in, which is space-time? You think like there's a 3D, like our world is 3-dimensional and time progresses forward, therefore 3 dimensions plus 1, 4D. What exactly do you mean by space-time? What do you mean by space-time is doomed?
Great. So this is, by the way, not my quote. This is from, for example, Nima Arkani-Hamed at the Institute for Advanced Study at Princeton, Ed Witten, also there, David Gross, Nobel Prize winner. So this is not just something the cognitive scientists, this is what the physicists are saying.
Yeah, the physicists are space-time skeptics.
Yeah, they're saying that, and I can say exactly why they think it's doomed, but what they're saying is that, because your question was, what aspect of space-time, what are we talking about here? It's both space and time, their union into space-time as in Einstein's theory. That's doomed. Mm-hmm. And they're basically saying that even quantum theory, this is with Nima Arkani-Hamed especially, so Hilbert spaces will not be fundamental either. So that the notion of Hilbert space, which is really critical to quantum field theory, quantum information theory, that's not going to figure in the fundamental new laws of physics. So what they're looking for is some new mathematical structures beyond space-time, beyond Einstein's 4-dimensional space-time or supersymmetric version, geometric algebra signature 2, 4 kind of. There are different ways that you can represent it but they're finding new structures, and by the way, they're succeeding now. They found something called the amplituhedron. This is Nima and his colleagues, the cosmological polytope. There are these like polytopes, these polyhedra in multi dimensions, generalizations of simplices that are coding for example, the scattering amplitudes of processes in the Large Hadron Collider and other colliders. So they're finding that if they let go of space-time completely, they're finding new ways of computing these scattering amplitudes that turn literally billions of terms into one term. When you do it in space and time, because it's the wrong framework, it's just a user interface. That's now from the evolutionary point of view. It's just user interface. It's not a deep insight into the nature of reality. So it's missing deep symmetry. It's something called a dual conformal symmetry, which turns out to be true of the scattering data, but you can't see it in space-time. And is making the computations way too complicated because you're trying to compute all the loops and Feynman diagrams and all the Feynman integrals. So see, the Feynman approach to the scattering amplitudes is trying to enforce two critical properties of space-time: locality and unitarity. And so when you enforce those, you get all these loops and different levels of loops, and for each of those you have to add new terms to your computation. But when you do it outside of space-time, you don't have the notion of unitarity. You don't have the notion of locality. You have something deeper, and it's capturing some symmetries that are actually true of the data. But then when you look at the geometry of the facets of these polytopes, then certain of them will code for unitarity and locality. So it actually comes out of the structure of these deep polytopes. So what we're finding is there's this whole new world now beyond space-time that is making explicit symmetries that are true of the data that cannot be seen in space-time, and that is turning the computations from billions of terms to one or two or a handful of terms. So we're getting insights into symmetries, and all of a sudden the math is becoming simple because we're not doing something silly. We're not adding up all these loops in space-time. We're doing something far deeper. But they don't know what this world is about. Also, they're in an interesting position where we know that space-time is doomed, and I should probably tell you why it's doomed, what they're saying about why it's doomed. But they need a flashlight to look beyond space-time. What flashlight are we going to use to look into the dark beyond space-time? Because Einstein's theory and quantum theory can't tell us what's beyond them. All they can do is tell us that when you put us together, space-time is doomed at 10 to the minus 33 centimeters, 10 to the minus 43 seconds. Beyond that, space-time doesn't even make sense. It just has no operational definition. So, but it doesn't tell you what's beyond, and so they're just looking for deep structures, like guessing. It's really fun. So these really brilliant guys, generic, brilliant men and women who are doing this work, physicists, are making guesses about these structures, informed guesses, because they're trying to ask, well, okay, what deeper structure could give us the stuff that we're seeing in space-time, but without certain commitments that we have to make in space-time, like locality. So they make these brilliant guesses, and of course, most of the time you're going to be wrong. But once you get one or two that start to pay off, and then you get some lucky breaks. So they got a lucky break back in 1986. A couple of mathematicians named Park and Taylor took the scattering amplitude for 2 gluons coming in at high energy and 4 gluons going out at low energy. So that kind of scattering thing. So it's like apparently for people who are into this, that's sort of something that happens so often you need to be able to find it and get rid of those because you already know about that and so you needed to compute them. It was billions of terms. And they couldn't do it, even for the supercomputers couldn't do that for the many billions or millions of times per second they needed to do it. So they begged, the experimentalists begged the theorists, please, you got it. And so Park and Taylor took the billions of terms, hundreds of pages, and miraculously turned it into 9. And then a little bit later, they guessed one term expression that turned out to be equivalent. So billions of terms reduced to one term, that so-called famous Park-Taylor formula, 1986. And that was like, okay, where did that come from? This is a pointer into a deep realm beyond space and time, but no one, what can you do with it? And they thought maybe it was a one-off, but then other formulas started coming up, and then eventually Nima Arkani Hamed and his team found this thing called the amplituhedron, which really sort of captures the whole, a big part of the whole ball of wax. I'm sure they would say, no, there's plenty more to do. So I won't say they did it all by any means. They're looking at the cosmological polytope as well. So what's remarkable to me is that two pillars of modern science, quantum field theory with gravity on the one hand, and evolution by natural selection on the other, just in the last 20 years have very clearly said space-time has had a good run. Reductionism has been a fantastic methodology. So we had a great ontology of space-time, a great methodology of reductionism. Now it's time for a new trick. But now you need to go deeper and show, but by the way, doesn't mean we throw away everything we've done, not by a long shot. Every new idea that we come up with beyond space-time must project precisely into space-time, and it better give us back everything that we know and love in space-time, or generalizations, or it's not going to be taken seriously, and it shouldn't be. So we have a strong constraint on whatever we're going to do beyond space-time. It needs to project into space-time, and whatever this deeper theory is, it may not itself have evolution by natural selection. This may not be part of this deeper realm. But when we take whatever that thing is beyond space-time and project it into space-time, it has to look like evolution by natural selection, or it's wrong. So that's a strong constraint on this work.
So even the evolution by natural selection and quantum field theory could be interfaces into something that doesn't look anything like you mentioned. I mean, it's interesting to think that evolution might be a very crappy interface into something much deeper.
That's right. They're both telling us that the framework that you've had can only go so far, and it has to stop. And there's something beyond. And that framework, the very framework that is space and time itself. Now, of course, evolution by natural selection is not telling us about like Einstein's relativistic space-time. So that was another question you asked a little bit earlier. It's telling us more about our perceptual space and time, which we have used as the basis for creating first a Newtonian space versus time as a mathematical extension of our perceptions. And then Einstein then took that and extended it even further. So the relationship between what evolution is telling us and what the physicists are telling us is that, in some sense, the Newton and Einstein space-time are formulated as sort of rigorous extensions of our perceptual space, making it mathematically rigorous and laying out the symmetries that they find there. So that's sort of the relationship between them. So it's the perceptual space-time that evolution is telling us is just a user interface, effectively. And then the physicists are finding that even the mathematical extension of that into...
Yeah, I don't even know what these guys are talking about because I'm not going to listen to it. Unfortunately, I'm playing it on my video in my 31 minutes. Alright, I'm going to find somebody else to do the series too, as I was mentioning already. Very aggravating. So as I'm doing some shit around the house and I'm thinking about the videos running out here, listening to these assholes. These geniuses, man, they're fucking geniuses. There's a lot of things that I'd like to come out and talk to people about. Tell anyone who would come to my channel that I would like to fill you in on. As I'm learning them, you know, over the last 5 years especially, since finding the system. Anybody who knows me in the last 5 years that actually listened to any fucking thing I say, then they know that one of the things that I try to do is stay calm, because that's when things come to me. That's when I see things clearly. So when we're talking about sound resonance and sine waves, vibrations and sounds, right? When I was doing the Tripping Sponge series, I was looking for those answers, but I said to Rick, I'm not going to harp on it. I don't know enough about it. I've got the visual, so let me just go with the visual, and the rest will come as it comes, you know? And then if I do it that way, everything seems to be coming. It just keeps coming and coming and coming. And I start being able to, not just when I say see it all, that's a metaphor now, because now I hear it all. So I'm going to be real quiet for a second right now and listen to the cricket. There's one fucking cricket somewhere in this garage or somewhere over on the side, probably in the garage. And then we hear what? 3 birds only. 2 or 3 birds and 1 cricket. Let's listen. Hear him? Little bastard. He's been in the garage for a week or 2. And I don't think he's surviving. There was 2 of them in here before. Okay. So from now on, and then I'll talk more about this in the future. I'm just going to mention it now since I'm doing these research videos. These are only research videos anyway. I don't really have anybody listening to what I'm saying or watching my videos anyway. So really more or less just talking to myself and hoping that somebody will someday come along and fucking listen to what I'm telling them and go look at what I'm explaining to them to go look at. So when we think about everything in the bio realm, from now on, as you're looking at everything, think of them also, even more importantly, it's turning out electrically. Look at everything on an electrical basis, no matter what it is. So you think of blood as being a bio product, all right? Yeah, that's the best way I can describe it anyway, as a bio product. So instead, think of the electrons and the ions that are inside the blood. When you think of air, you're thinking of oxygen, right? You're thinking of breathing air and oxygen into your lungs and breathing them back out. But it's the same thing when I was doing the Candace Owens series that I was talking to you about black humans having the largest lungs and the largest body capacity for that matter. All their body organs are larger than whites. I'm only throwing that in there because that's something else that I should be talking about more regularly. Alright, so instead of thinking about the air part of the oxygen in the air, think about the electrons and the ions that are inside the oxygen. When we think about medicines that even contain them types of things, for example, an inhaler or a hydrogen peroxide or things like that. We think of it as a bio thing. We get an infection and a cut or something, and we put hydrogen peroxide on there to clean the cut and stuff like that, rather than alcohol is another option too. But hydrogen peroxide can also work for certain things. And it's, again, we're talking about the electrons and the ions, the electrical components that are in these things that we all think of as bio. Okay, so as I've been going along, and I don't have much time to talk about this because I'm already at 35 minutes or something like that. So I try to make a point that I will slowly get to because it's got to be talked out a little bit and I got to start getting used to talking about it. So one of back to the sound resonance and the sine waves. So I knew that these things were going to come to me. I knew they were just going to come. I was saying it to Rick. I'm like, just stay calm. Go look at the system. We soak it all up. Just keep soaking it up and enjoy it. Now we can see it for what it is. And but we knew there was more to it. I was trying to figure out the letters and the words, and that led me to sound resonances that our voices make. And my old videos 4 or 5 years ago, in the beginning, I was big on that stuff. 3 years ago, even I was saying, even my voice, I don't have a good voice for doing what I'm doing. My voice is aggravating to listen to. I certainly don't want to hear it. So there is something to all that, and I knew that. And also, I mentioned it in the Candace Owens series and other series about the letters that we use, our alphabet, the words that we use. The English language is fucking horrible for our sound resonance. There can be a British accent that is much smoother and more soothing, right? And we can get into this accent thing, but again, it's all about the electrical. It's even the sound of these things, right? You might have heard me talk, if you ever watch my videos, about the churches using the church bells in the high cathedral ceilings with everybody in there going, and then you're thinking to yourself, what the fuck is this guy talking about? He's talking about one church here and one church there. No, I'm not. I'm talking about before we had cars driving everywhere, creating sound resonance. Before we had air conditioners running in our window going, "Rrrr," and a big, generator outside the house going, "Rrrr," and everything around us that we've created mechanically as humans that make these certain sound resonance. Look, I looked into it, a lot of this in the beginning, and it was all bringing me back to hertz. 50 to 60 hertz. And for some reason, Rick, if you're still with me, you'll remember this. Rick actually went and checked. We were both looking at certain things, but he went and checked. There was a railroad station, an electric rail car in his area of Austria that was running at 6 hertz, 6 hertz, 7 hertz, something like that. Way away from 50 to 60 hertz. We run our washers, dryers. I checked every fucking thing. Our cars run at 50 to 60 hertz. Everything runs on these 50 to 60 hertz. Most things that we do, all over the place, everywhere. Country to country, they do vary a little bit, but everybody's had the goal over the last 100 years to get to this 50 to 60 hertz. Okay, that means something. And you don't even think of it as sound resonance, but every time you run your washer, every time you run your dryer, every time your AC's on, every time you're driving your car, every time you're fucking doing any of this, you're getting whacked with 50 to 60 hertz. Every electrical outlet you plug into, your radio, your TV, your cell phone, everything is at 50 to 60 fucking hertz, right? Oh boy. So, when you look back in fucking time, as now we know how we can easily push these hertz and sound resonances and sine waves. How do we push them and pull them? How are we pushing, pulling things around in our system? In other words, I tell you, they dropped the mineral streets out of the fucking clouds. Well, gee, how do they move them? With sound resonance, same thing. They have what's called an eraser jet comes through, makes a totally different noise than any other airplane, jet, chopper, anything you ever seen. And if you look at the sky once in a while and you go fucking look up for yourselves, you will see that it drives the cloud formations. At that point they're called cloud formations, but before that they're just mineral streets. They're heavy metals and mineral carbons that they dump out of the jets, and at other times in history we did it other ways. I talked about all this in these videos, but it has nothing to do with nature. It's nothing natural about it, because humans have fucked with it all, and then we have lied about it all. Okay, I'm working to a point. Do I have any minutes left? When you go to my moon videos, I think I'm at 41 minutes or so already. When you go to my moon videos, it started striking me, because I knew there was something with the birds first. Going out in the morning and you hear the birds, you can't fucking concentrate. You can't even think straight because there's so many birds going to town, right, in the early morning. Other sounds come in during your day. You'll start hear, like right now, we hear a plane going by. You'll hear a train going by. You'll hear the gunshots going off down at the firing range. You'll hear some dogs barking. You'll hear some shit going on, and maybe some wind will come along. Wind is an effective electromagnetic current. So anyway, some wind comes along, blows some leaves around on the trees, and you're hearing all these other noises that are breaking up the sound of the birds. And then, the other day when I was watching the moon videos back, I'm noticing with the crickets. And I noticed it for a long time. Okay.
Well, you routed me out.
So there was.
I did not.
There was
And
other
isn't
ways.
this the type of game where if they're found, you need to help?
What's up, Jack?
What's up,
I don't know, yeah.
You looking for Edu? I have not seen him. I don't know where he is.
What happened to the car?
I'm working on it for a long time. I don't have the money to paint it. I'm just doing the body work on it right now. So anyways, the fucking crickets. So before these other things came along, the car, the other noisy things, the 50 to 60 hertz that we're running at now.
How are your tomatoes doing so good?
Yeah, they're doing good. You guys can pick some and take some if you want some. Just go grab yourself a big bag upstairs. Ed will get you one, and you guys take all you want. So So the fucking, anyway, back to the story. So that was another way of driving the current. That was another way of driving and steering the current by using these bio-species, bio-creatures, humans, for example, blah, 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 talking with all our O's that are not supposed to be there. We're supposed to be using O's, not O's. S's are probably not even supposed to be there unless they come after a K, and then we can use a S after a K, but we could probably do that with a Z. So we could probably mix Z with something else and get a sound out of it. So there's several letters that I know, for no doubt in my mind, are fucking garbage. And when you start listening to the birds, I fucking hate birds as much as I hate trees nowadays. I mean, these are not our friends. We think that they're our friends. So chirp, 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 real fucking sweet. We were suckered in, man. We were suckered in. So we were controlling sound resonance by, first of all, we put all the fucking trees here. They're a bio creature. I'll tell you what, the true creator and the false creator and the creator do not give a fuck about the biosystem. So therefore, the trees are here from humans. Again, we divided Adam. We divided Adam so many fucking times. And this is what we came up with. Everything other than the feline, canine, rodent, ape, human, and beast has been derived by human interference. And it's obvious. It's so fucking obvious. I'm not even doubting when I talk about it anymore. This is all too right in our fucking face the whole time. Unbelievable. So we can go through lots of history. Anybody comes along that actually gets what I'm fucking showing you and you're willing to go look, it's going to be easier now. It's so much fucking fun to go looking. All right, the volcanoes. How did we get the minerals and everything? Okay, on the false creator / creators build, how did he, without having any humans, feline, canine, rodent, ape, human, and beast, to cause all the carbons and dig them up out of the ground as oil, gas, natural gas, all the carbons all the naturals and the heavy metals and minerals that we dig and smelting and melting and burning down forests and all that. Now, before any of that happened, none of those things were in the false creator / creators build. How do we know this? Because they're not in the imagery. They're not there. So if the smoke, fire, flowers, trees, all these things, water, ice, fish, elephants, think of all the things that are missing and from the biosystem that are not in the imagery. I don't care where you look, microscopics all the way to huge sections of the veil. Whatever the fuck you want to look at, there's only feline, canine, rodent, ape, human, and beast. That was the true creator's creation, and the false creator / creator had stolen it and then built a biosystem within it. But he went off of the true creator's work, which did not include any of the other things, right? So we're surrounded by them. I'm out for minutes. I can't even see the fucking thing. I'm at 46 minutes. All right, I'll be back.